We are making progress on the farm and still rounding out the first month. Now, the game defaults to 1 day months when you start, so this first month is going to be a little shorter than usual, a little wonky. I had to adjust the timescale to get a few contracts done early, the same contracts I would have done in a usual month. Now, on the farm, what we've done so far is gotten a few garden plots set up and running, and we've got some free range chickens. Are they still free range if they're fenced in? I think it's access to grass, right? At any rate, in today's video, we'll talk about how I plan to keep contracts grounded in some semblance of reality, how to keep this playthrough from spiraling into absurdity, and I think about and talk about the progress I'd like to make coming up. In the first part is contracts. How do I take on what could be lucrative contracts without totally breaking immersion? After all, I could easily do all the contracts if I wanted. I just need to slow the game down enough. I could have all contracts done by noon on the first day of the month. That's obviously a bridge too far. So, how do I limit this? And how do I draw a line? My first thought was that I just set myself a firm limit on contracts per day. Take one or two and then call it. But that just felt dumb. I can't explain why, but it felt artificially limiting. And I saw myself standing around the farm at 1 o'clock and saying, what else do I do here? So I decided to use the Stardew Valley method and use time as the limiting factor. So I set my time scale to 3x right now and 4 days in a month. The idea is that I should have plenty of time to tend the gardens, feed the animals, while still doing some contracts. And then as my farm expands, I'll have less and less time for contracts, except for those I can subcontract out, the real simple ones. And I think this solves a problem that I've always run into with Farming Simulator. In the past, I would take every contract available and I would run the game at a crawl, and I would make so much money off contracts because I might make like 300K in a month that the actual farm seemed like a pittance. And before long, I wasn't actually building a farm. I was just running a contracting empire that happened to own a few fields and maybe a couple cows. By letting time become the limiting factor, it forces me to make those choices. If I spend all day helping other farmers, then my own farm is going to grow more slowly or not at all. And speaking of simple, another limiting factor that I'm going to impose is that I'll only take contracts that I expect I'd reasonably be able to do in real life or my farmer in the game. So no grape harvesting, no fertilizing even. I couldn't work the sprayer. For example, I started off taking a log transport contract, and then I realized there was no way I could do this, so I canceled that one. Once the month turned over in game, that's when the actual first excitement started on my farm. I recently, in real life, grew my first potatoes ever, a very humble start, but it did make me understand the novelty and the joy of the first thing you've planted finally yielding actual food. But this in the game created a new problem. I bought a nice truck and trailer to start off that emulates my real life, and this thing was nice for bringing a few seeds and feed home, but it's not nearly what I need to transport this amount of produce. And this is just the first step. This is the most basic version. So now I have to take a look at more robust flatbed trucks. They cost anywhere from 45 to 67K. And I'll just need to make a decision on which one I want soon, because this is already a pain. And this is just the first haul. As you'll see in this video, I do use a mod that lets me lift pallets and bags by hand. In previous Farming Simulator, I've tried using forklifts. Good Lord, is it rough. I'm sure there is a forklift simulator out there that's better suited for that if I really want to play a forklift simulator, but I don't. The lifting honestly doesn't even feel that much better, but it is an upgrade overall. Honestly, I might end up using an auto load mod. Depends on how this actually feels as the farm grows, and we'll see if this becomes a time sink for no reason. I realized I might be being a little silly by making a big variety of crops to start off. I got excited. I turned on like 3 different ones per garden crop. It might be smarter to start off and just make the same one across the board. At least then I can probably translate that to a good production line. I've got the chickens producing eggs, but not enough to make full pallets, so it's not worth the trip yet to do anything with them. Thankfully, the plot that I started off is very close to the farmer's market, and they accept all my produce as it stands. I'm sure I can get more from a production line, but I got to get going. As the farm grows, I'd actually like to open my own farmer's market on the property somewhere. I have the space. I have this large empty barn that looks nice, but I don't know if I have anything to do with it. It might be a good balance of immersion and convenience to have that on the property. So with some cash in my account, I decided to make the next move for the farm and get my next production. Obviously, chickens are rather set it and forget it, though I did pick up some more food to try and stay ahead of it. Man, it's going to be nice when I'm making it myself and I can just pull it from the farm. So I had to make a decision on what to invest in next. I could probably afford a small field, but I wouldn't have enough for the tractor and all the equipment needed to make it work. Plus, it would take months to get a return. I mean, the cost of a tractor, cultivator, seeder, weeder, harvester, it seems insane. It's got to be $1,000,000. I'll have to have an absurd amount of cash and probably still take out a loan to be able to pull that off. I guess in other games, other farming simulator games, I always started with some property and basic equipment, so it never struck me what an investment that truly is. Oh, yeah, and then I would still need the trailer to haul whatever I harvest, which I would probably put in a production line. So no return on any of that for even more months. That really is going to be a lift. So for faster money and to stick with my own personal dream, I decided to continue working with the animal operation. And sheep was the obvious choice here. Yes, I'd like to eventually get sheep, goats, pigs, and cows, maybe even horses, but horses feel like a luxury. But sheep are the simplest. Buy a pen, raise them, feed them some hay, get wool, sell them later on. Cows, I think, do the same thing minus the wool, and I suspect are a bit more profitable, but they cost more and have a longer time to profit. And right now, I'm just looking for some consistent growing income. Sheep it is then. I got a pasture down. I didn't mess with the size at all. I realized I don't really know anything about meadow. I'm not sure if that grows in later in supplements food or if I'm doing something wrong. I'll have to dig into that. At any rate, I got a couple of hay bales for them. Turned out to be way too much food, but better to be over-prepared, I guess. And just like that, all the money I made from the contracts over the last month is gone, but I've made a big improvement to the property. Oh yeah, I have some beehives down too. I don't think it's going to be crazy lucrative, but it'll create a nice stream as well as I stack more and more of those up. With all those improvements done and all the money I really want to spend now spent, it's time to look at a few contracts that can pad my income. I like contracts that I can simply assign to an AI worker and get a good return. I feel like 5K is the minimum to where it makes sense. With leasing equipment, I had a long internal debate about only taking contracts that I would do myself, but the reality was I didn't think I'd enjoy sitting in the machine watching it drive for that long, so I gave myself a little break here. I'll still juggle AI workers in these contracts. Plus, for a lot of these, I have to be an active part of it anyway, like harvesting or baling. I suspect I'll dabble in contracts through the end of this month, along with topping up the feed, fertilizer, and water for my garden plots and animals. Creeping up on winter, and I'm not sure how that's going to affect any of the production that I currently have. I think the garden plots function just like greenhouses and don't care about seasons, and I accept that tiny bit of realism breaking. I still might get a greenhouse to spruce the place up, though. And wouldn't you know, that brings us to the end of today's video. Thank you for joining me as we explore this game in the slow, peaceful pace it deserves to be played. I can't wait to see how I can responsibly expand the operation, and I hope you'll stay along for the ride. Let me know what you see in the comments. Hope to see you next time. On behalf of Mediocre Industries, have a good one. We'll see you soon.